In Albany, there's a predator that thought it was okay to have sex with a 13-year-old child.
She told me where she was, at a hotel in Stone Mountain. And so we just called the police to go out there and check on her, do whatever they need to do. She's a runaway minor.
Who's actively being trafficked?
Who's actively being trafficked in this hotel. They'll take her. So, but she has to say that she wants to go.
If we can get her to the safe house.
Like if she says that she wants to go and we can get that application done, they'll take her.
So we got a call that she had run away, and we loaded up the truck and went to a couple of the hotels that we knew she had been at.
Hey, so the law enforcement officer called me back, and he said that if she was willing to go to the safe home, they would be glad to take her. But I didn't get that application. I don't know, because my email is like an encrypted email. I have. Her mom is... Yes, she's just waiting on me to get with her to do the application. I'll probably just have to do it with her over the phone.
She's 17. She's got a child. Had a child when she was 13 years old. Addicted to drugs and alcohol, but mainly drugs. You know, she's got her whole life ahead of her, and yet here she is, you know, with a toddler already. Not even an adult, can't even vote yet, you know.
If a girl has a baby at a very young age, they've already been through trauma, obviously, because no preteen has a baby unless they've experienced trauma. And so then, you know, they're already going through these things that most of us can't even dream of dealing with. So they're experiencing this trauma, which affects their mental health, it can affect their physical health and everything. And then the older they get, it can just get more intense, especially if they are still in the life or they're still being traumatized and re-traumatized.
She wants to get out of the life and do better and take care of her child. And I don't want to say too much because it's something we're still kind of looking into, but possibly some familial abuse there from somebody inside the house. She's basically a child with her whole life ahead of her and a ton of potential, but nobody to help her get started on the right path.
Kind of talk to you about what's going on. So we made contact with the minor that ran away. She was in Stone Mountain. So I'm waiting to hear back from I haven't spoken with the officer. I was on the phone with dispatch the whole time. And he's supposed to call me. So I'm still waiting on that. So I haven't. Yeah, she's from Albany, but ran away to Stone Mountain. She is 17. Okay, say that again. Okay, thank you. Alright, they can take her, but it has to be within the next couple of hours. And I don't know how to get in contact with the officer. He's supposed to call me, so hopefully he does that soon, but...
If we don't have this contact info, there's nothing we can do but wait, man. Because I can go ahead and tell you, the sheriff's office isn't going to give out that officer's number.
Right.
They'll probably call you from a block number. That's
Yeah.
what they usually do.
Money and sex are very destructive when they're used out of the context that they were created for. And so if somebody's being coerced through money, a promise of something better, even if it is drugs, because that's what they're hooked on, or they get them hooked on that, then it creates this dependence on this person. So they'll do whatever they have to do to get their drugs, to keep that relationship going.
Doesn't matter who it is, no matter how good you think they are, everybody has a different side to them. You can call it a dark side, a criminal side, whatever you want to call it. It's why early on, you know, it was easy for me to see the bad in people, like I was talking about earlier. It's very easy to pull that rap sheet and this dude ain't nothing but a junkie. This dude ain't nothing but a thief, a criminal, you know, whatever. Because I've known some prominent people that have gone down for some seedy things. And, you know, it's people that a lot of the community looks up to, yet here they are getting arrested for, you know, pandering and whatnot, you know, soliciting prostitutes. Yet they're supposed to be the preacher at this church, you know. So it's, for a while, I think that's where a lot of my, I guess, trust issues would come from. Like, I don't take anybody at face value, because some people with those rap sheets that I was talking about can be some of the best people you've met, but just have a terrible past, and some of those people with a squeaky clean record are living a double life and, you know, not who they are on the outside.
A lot of times we'll get to a point where we feel like, okay, the victim's rescued, safe, job done, end of day. Okay, and that's not the case. I mean, just because that victim was rescued, they're still a perpetrator that's out there. And nobody's ever raised their hand and said, you know, I'm just gonna traffic one person and then I'm done, I'm out of the game. That doesn't happen. Trafficker, it's a business, right? These guys, it's a heinous business. These guys don't go out and traffic one person and then be done with it. They'll go out and find their next victim if they already don't have one planned. And that's the problem is we have to take it back to them. Yeah, we've got this person rescued. Awesome. Let's get her taken care of, or him taken care of. Let's make sure that we take them from the event through the process and get them safe. But also know that there is a perpetrator out there that's not going to stop, because he doesn't just traffic one person and done. He's going to look for his next victim, and then he's going to start the whole cycle again, okay, and again and again. And until we stop them, okay, then they're going to continue. And how many other people will be victimized after that?
If law enforcement is not aware of the problem, so many times these women are seen as prostitutes or criminals because they have a pimp who's hiding, but she's doing all the work for him because she's under this manipulation. There's a whole lot of manipulation that goes on. He's like, baby, we gotta get a hotel room tonight. Like, we gotta pay for it somehow. So you're gonna go out there and turn these tricks for me, or you're gonna stand on the corner and beg for money. And she gets arrested. What about him? He's the one who lured her in and coerced her to do all of these things.
So I started helping Rachel, and she wanted me to be the outreach coordinator. And I thought that it would be the perfect fit because I've done outreach in my past, but obviously not with the sex trafficking aspect of it. So I knew that I had a lot to do to grow, to learn about this avenue and this aspect of things. And come to find out, for many years, I've actually been working with people that are survivors of human trafficking anyways. It looked different. There was a different label on these people that were in these situations.
So I am a former therapist and mental health advocate, and I have a master's in counseling, and, you know, done years of studying psychology and the brain, how the brain works, well-versed in trauma, and for Heritage of Hope, I'm the mental health consultant. I did a workshop on trauma one time and got to view the images of a brain of a child that has been through intense trauma versus a child who has not been through trauma in their life, and they're the same age and everything, but the child who's been through intense trauma, their brain was smaller, like physically smaller. So a lot of people don't realize that trauma literally impacts the structure of the brain, like the physical structure of the brain, in different ways. So the images show that, like, a child who has not been through trauma, or a person who has not been through trauma, their brain lights up in different areas when certain things happen, and it's usually like a typical reaction. Like if you ask them a question about how to think about something, then the frontal lobe is going to light up, because that's the part of your brain that that deals with reasoning and logic and consequences and everything like that. If they're scared, the back of the brain, the amygdala, is going to light up, because that deals with fear and survival. However, a child or a person who has experienced intense trauma, their brain is almost always lit up in the part that is associated with survival. And so while you and I, we're just having a conversation right now, or if somebody just engaging in life every day who hasn't been through trauma, their brain is going to react in the way that it's built to react. But somebody who has been through trauma, their brain is constantly on the lookout for danger. There's always a threat. It's always life or death. They're always in fight, flight, or freeze. Also, if you look at the amygdala is like a walnut-sized gland in the brain, in the center of the back of the brain. And someone who has not been through trauma is a typical size, but they found that somebody who has been through trauma, their amygdala is actually enlarged. And so they have a very heightened sense of fear and anxiety. And like I said, it's always on survival mode.
And that's a concern for us, but that leads back to the whole point of the complexity of a human trafficking investigation, and making sure people are trained properly to do these type of investigations. And from a law enforcement standpoint, I'll just tell you that a lot of times law enforcement don't interview the victims in the right way, because victims of human trafficking, it's a reversal for a law enforcement officer. The victim needs to really kind of lead that interview. They need to talk about what's happened to them, okay? And we need to be there to listen to them, to support what they're saying. They have a story, let them tell it, okay? Because then they'll tell you about everything that's going on, okay? And then you just take copious notes and then go find the perpetrator and arrest him. But the fact is sometimes, all too often, the buck stops once the victim's rescued, and then we're off looking for the next victim.
Whether somebody has experienced trauma, whether they're diagnosed with PTSD, their brain's going to look very similar. And usually if a child has experienced trauma, then they have some sort of PTSD. They have some sort of trauma-related disorder, more than likely. Especially people who have been through trafficking, through sex trafficking or human trafficking, it's not a one and done type of thing. They're constantly getting re-traumatized. And so that is, that's called complex PTSD or CPTSD. And so that is even more damaging to a person than PTSD, because it's chronic, it's complex, there's so many different layers to it. It's not just that they flash back to one situation, it's that it completely changes their reality, their outlook on life, and especially their interpersonal relationships and how they deal with other people.
And so when the woman is out there doing whatever this man has, or woman, has told them that they need to do, and then they go to jail for it. Because when they look at her, they see prostitute. They don't see that there's somebody else controlling what she's doing. That's the dark side of it. And then they sit in jail while this man goes and gets another girl. Because, like we said before, you can sell a weapon one time, you can sell drugs one time, but you can sell a human being over and over and over again. So what happens when you pull a woman out of that situation or she goes to jail, but the trafficker is still free? He just goes and gets another one. Because how many vulnerable people are there in the world? So many of us have vulnerabilities that somebody can look at and say, I can manipulate that to get what I want. And she's going to do whatever I want to because I know how to get her to do that. And so the dark side is seeing these women as criminals, as prostitutes, and not charging the people who are actually doing all of the damage. And so I think it's like, okay, let's take a step back and see the bigger picture. Yes, what these women did is not good. You know, they stole from people or they may have prostituted in order to get what they had to get. But there's a man behind that who is running the show. It might not even just be women. It could be drugs that he's running. And so while these women are sitting in jail, there's still so much more going on. Like, you haven't solved the problem. You've just put a woman in jail and let the rest just continue, if not worsen. And then she feels worthless because she's serving all this time. Now, I'm not excusing crime. I'm not saying that it's okay, you know, to steal something or anything like that. But it's so much more of a mental thing that we all just need to know about than just assume that this woman is a bad person. And I think, you know, law enforcement is starting to see this bigger picture. So, you know, Thistle Farms does expungement clinics for women to help get their charges dropped when they're related to trafficking. I think that's really awesome that they're helping them really start over. Because how many women want to get a job, but they want to turn in a background check and they have a record or something that they were forced to do? It's like, where do you go from there as a person who really is trying to genuinely start their life over? But you have this record.
It's a lot heavier than I thought it would be at times, a lot more trying. You know, because you get invested in these people. You know, you get calls at midnight to go help an underage girl that's at some 50-year-old man's house and has no clothes, no wallet, no phone. And you've already been working with her on other stuff for a couple weeks.
I think we have certain stigma and certain just beliefs about what these people look like or what they're like. And just being with them, I'm like, these girls, these women are really just like me. Like, the beginning of their story is just like mine, and maybe it played out differently than mine did, but it's not outside of me, and I can relate to where they're at.
And I mean, some of them that don't do right, you just want to shake them and say, stop doing stupid stuff. You know, if you'll walk a fine line for a couple weeks, we can have you where you need to be.
We are comfortable with what we know. And if we have experienced life through like the trauma and all of that, like there's something familiar about what we've been through and what we've experienced, and that to us is our normal. And so for them, when they're pulled out of those situations or they choose to leave those situations, it's actually what we would think of as being this like really safe place doesn't feel safe to them. Sometimes that like the street life or the life of that they've been living before feels more comfortable to them. And also because when you are coming into a place of healing, you actually have to feel. And there's just a reality that like sometimes feeling is too painful.
Yeah, so that is actually pretty typical. It's a pretty typical reaction for somebody who's been through trauma. If you think about people who are in abusive relationships, everybody's always like, why didn't she leave? Or why didn't he leave? Why didn't they just get out? And the reality is, no matter how dangerous the situation is, once you become comfortable with it, it's less frightening than the alternative, which is to completely change your lifestyle. And so part of that is trauma related. Part of that is just human nature, and just that we fear change.
Seeing these women or children, you know, either if it's women, seeing them turn their life around, working on getting their GED or whatever education it is they plan on getting, a job. If it's kids, you know, getting away from their abusers, you know, getting them to somewhere where they actually feel safe, somewhere where they can lay their head down at night and not have to worry about, you know, who's coming in, who's going to do what.
There's a particular case that we've been working that's been kind of difficult. And when you work with these type of things, it's really important to have survivor voices involved, and also just guidance from different organizations. So we called up Hope for Justice and Thistle Farms, and we decided to take a trip to see them.
It's definitely important to meet with these other organizations around the country just to see how they do outreach. And, you know, Albany is unique. It's definitely not Nashville. It's definitely not Atlanta or some of these other bigger cities where we have these sister programs that we can network with. But it is interesting to hear what works for them or maybe what didn't work for them so that we can take that information, bring it home to Albany, and try to modify it so that it fits our community better, our people better.
Hey, the whole team's here. This is Lori. Hey, I'm Lori. Opie. And then Barney has his hand.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, everybody's here.
Yeah, the whole crew.
Yeah.
How you doing, Rich?
Opie.
Opie, pleasure.
Our kids good that
Pleasure. Yes. Right.
No, actually,
Yeah. No,
we
the
reorganized the entire office.
we reorganized
Does he know?
offices. No.
That's hilarious. Don't tell him.
No, he knows.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Like, that would be funny.
We pulled all of the investigators out of here. So now we're just working, like going straight to the site. Well, there's no reason us to come in here. There's no traffickers hanging out in here.
That's true.
And, you know,
Well,
when you
thanks
go
for
to train
clearing our
people,
names.
there's no training.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're cleared. Yeah. No training, so we just work straight from there. Human trafficking is not a new phenomenon. It's been around for millennia, thousands of years, okay? You know, and I think, you know, unfortunately, Hollywood has brought the misconception of human trafficking into the world, you know, with the movie Taken. But, you know as well as I do, abductions are extremely rare. That's not how it happens. You're not walking out in front of Target and a white van comes by and scoops you up, throws you in the back and takes you off and sells you. That's not how it happens. Does that happen? Sure. On a very, very rare occasion, most of the individuals that feed the trafficking funnel, it's different in every area you go to. But, you know, we're looking at those who are at the highest risk. We're looking at those who have the factors up there where runaway, homeless, or those who have been groomed online. And I think, you know, Hollywood has sensationalized it, which has created that big myth. But you're starting to see a lot more people, okay, talk about it in the media and bringing awareness about it. A lot of nonprofits raising awareness about it. But, you know, and it's hard to believe now, it took till now that law enforcement realized, hey, this is a problem. Well, no kidding, it's a problem. It's been a problem. We just don't have the resources to combat it. You know, most states will have, 1 to 4 people dedicated to human trafficking investigations. Human trafficking investigations are very complex. They're extremely resourced. They require a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of money to do them. And most law enforcement agencies don't have that. So they go for the quick hits to promote, hey, we arrested 15 people for human trafficking. Those will be pled out to prostitution, and then the real victims are still left uncovered.
So the thing about trafficking cases that I experience is they're very hard to prove because most of the time there's not physical evidence. And then you've also you factor in trauma bonding, where the potential victim is so connected to the trafficker that they don't want to testify. So if you don't have physical evidence, you don't have a witness, then you really don't have a case. And when you do get someone who wants to come forward to testify, then they start getting intimidated, they start getting threatened. They want, the traffickers don't want them to be expose them. So for me, my challenge, I guess, is come alongside the victims and believe in their story, and then trying to offer them hope, because they may have gone to police before, they get believed. Like we were talking about earlier, they seem crazy. Like there's no way that could have happened to somebody like that. But giving them hope that there's somebody willing to believe their story is a good start. And then looking at what information they have, what you're able to recover, what you're able to get into, everything legally is the next step, and you have to be creative with it. So talking about tax evasion, if you're able to find out stuff like that, go that way, whatever it takes.
And I think it's important to note that the level of awareness has raised because organizations in the nonprofit arena, the NGOs, have started raising that awareness. And they're the ones coming out going, hey, hold on, there's a trafficking issue, and it's everywhere. It's not over here and it's not over here, it's all over here. And it's not just in other countries, it's also here. And that's one of my biggest, fears is the crisis that we're seeing at our southwest border. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, was actually created to respond to disasters of natural disasters or man-made disasters. We deployed them to the border. So apparently we think it's a disaster down there. And, and this isn't a forum for immigration, illegal or otherwise, but when you have these individuals coming into the U.S. with such a flood, the vulnerability level of them are here. And there are people that are going to take advantage of that level of vulnerability. The smugglers, you're seeing them dropping these babies, 3 or 4 year olds, over a fence. Okay. And that's scary to know that baby is unaccounted for now. What's going to happen to them? Where are they going to go? Into the foster system, which is another high level of risk for trafficking. So we're going to flood a system that can't handle the current workload that they have with like taking a drink from a fire hydrant. Here you go. And that's going to be very difficult to do. So trafficking isn't going anywhere. In fact, it's going to rise. The pandemic is, I think post-pandemic, we're going to start seeing how many kids were actually groomed online, how many kids were actually enticed online. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children had said that, their cases for referrals has doubled over the period of time that we look at a pandemic. And the problem with that is the fact that, I don't know how kids could be online any more than they already are, but they are, okay? And, when you're online that amount of time, traffickers are like fishermen. They're not going to go fish in a parking lot because they know there are no fish there, but they know where their targets are. Their victims are online right now. So that's where they're going to go. No place is safe. Christian chat room, that's not safe. Video games, not safe. Okay, Discord, not safe. None of these are safe. And the scary thing is parents think that because the kids are at home, they're safe. And I remember when I was a kid, my parents would always say to me, if a stranger in a car pulls up to you, do not go talk to them. Even if they tell you to come here, come here. But as parents now, they think to themselves, a car window is one person, but that computer window is millions of people. We're disconnected from our kids. And when we become disconnected from what they're doing, they're going to look for somebody who will connect with them. And there's a trafficker that's out there that will connect with them. And I had a conversation with a person who was an online groomer. And he says, Rich, I would basically take the same message and I would cut and paste it into 100 different chat boxes. And I played the game of statistics. I knew I'd get 1 or 2 people to respond to me. During a pandemic, 10% responded to me. You know how long it took for me to get a photo for them to send it to me? Less than an hour. Less than an hour. And we're going to start seeing human trafficking go from physically having a person to traffic to virtually having a person to traffic, where you're actually getting trafficked online. And, we'll start seeing that gravitate and become a huge problem. And that's the scary point, is these individuals don't actually have to physically have control of somebody to traffic them. They can do it virtually, but it doesn't make them less a victim. They're still a victim. They're still a victim. And most of them will go, statistically, they say that victims will go 2 years before they'll tell anybody about it. That's a lot of trauma for somebody to try to contain for 2 years.
So online exploitation happens or begins very innocent. You may be playing a game and you have a new individual join the game, whatever, and you start having a conversation. They start asking questions about the game. They start building a relationship, friendship, and it comes across as very innocent. Then it moves into more personal conversations, and then that moves into asking for pictures, and then it moves from there. But any app that has messaging capabilities can be used to target and exploit vulnerable individuals. There was even a report, I believe it was 2017, where a individual was using the Bible app to target youth in a youth group. And so something as innocent as a Bible app can be used, then anything can be used.
Yeah, Christine, as a parent, I know all too well how life has changed for kids during the pandemic. Their social lives have moved online, and pedophiles know it. And there's an added danger: live streaming. Experts say what happens on them is often missed by algorithms meant to root out predators. And that means inappropriate behavior may fly under the radar of social media platforms and law enforcement. And what we found will disturb you. And we want to mention, we dropped out of the live streams before things got explicit and tipped off parents and police when we could.
So, truth or dare? Put it down. Say truth or dare, Matt.
I trusted her, but I didn't know there was a bunch of sickos out there that would prey on her.
A stunned San Bernardino mother barges into a social media live stream. We were rolling as she confronted the men.
You're a sick trying to stay in communication with a girl who's 10 years old.
Who were messaging her daughter and niece.
There's a few time tricks that I can do.
Adults tuning in to watch a kid's game turn explicit.
Truth or dare? Start putting them in. Ask who you want it to be and what.
The adults aren't remorseful. Instead, they taunt mom.
What really matters is that you're a sick trying to stay in communication with a girl who's 10 years old.
This mother we aren't naming got a heads up from Fox 11 after our producer came across her daughter's live stream. Hundreds of people logging in to watch her. Some appear to be fellow children, but others are clearly adults.
You guys know the deal. You can dare me, you can do whatever.
We found example
Don't do anything dirty.
after example.
Guys, I can do inappropriate dares.
Kids possibly as young as 7 live streaming or being invited into private chats.
Please do not private live with Henry if you are a young kid, because he's going to show you something really bad. He showed me porn.
Proposition prompted.
He showed me his eggplant and I did not like it.
Or worse.
The majority of you guys said for me to take all my clothes off, so.
That type of exploitation, when it is on a phone, takes away a certain amount of power they don't know. You don't know where those pictures are going to go. You don't know who's going to see it. You don't know. Something's always up in the air, you know. And I'm not saying that's any better or worse than any other type of trauma. Trauma's all relative to everybody. But one of the worst things about exploitation or sexual assault, any type of non-consensual sexual anything, especially with children, is just the element of power, of feeling powerless, of having that power taken away from you. And then there's something even, and I don't even want to say non-consensual sex with underage people, because that is sexual assault. You know, minors can't truly consent to sex because their brain isn't developed enough to be able to understand it, you know. And so, but it's even more detrimental when it's a spiritual leader, because not only is this affecting a child mentally and emotionally, physically, it's affecting them spiritually as well. And so it just brings about this entire new dimension to it, you know, outside of any other type of sexual exploitation or assault or anything like that.
A lot of times people are very unsuspecting because they think that they have anonymity. They think that they're safe behind their computer screen. But in reality, if they start sending pictures or at a minimum sharing information, personal information about them, then that can be used to exploit them. And you know, the predators, they're sending Amazon gift cards, other things of value in exchange for pictures. And once they get the pictures, then they say, I'm going to release these to your parents, I'm going to release them to your youth pastor, whoever. And then the individual feels like they need to do more to keep those from being shared. So then they get into that cycle where they're being exploited, and they may never have contact with the predator ever. Anything that has messaging capabilities, obviously gaming or games, can be used. It is.
Especially the youth version.
Yep. Because that guy, I think if I remember right, he was the youth pastor and was targeting youth in his youth group. Yeah, I don't have the numbers, but there are connections between pornography and trafficking. A lot of pornography that is filmed is the individuals that are being filmed or are not wanting to be there. And a lot of times they may act like that they are enjoying it. They act like that they're happy about being there. But in reality, what's on the other side of that camera could be elements of force. It could be coercion. You just don't know. But there have been studies, there have been reports that have been put out that there's a direct connection between pornography and trafficking.
Yeah, and I was saying to myself, how do you get off that? How do you stop doing that? Because
Mike,
I had cause I would watch it openly. I would never hide it. I would watch it, and my wife would come in. What the are you watching? Just watch it, And then when he was expressing that, he was hiding. I said, "Why? Why did he hide from it? Why did he hide,
See, man. Let me tell you something, man. Mike, I knew I had a problem, dude. I was like, because the thing is, people say, man, look, pornography. Hey, man, it's natural. Like, I'm a man, so it's natural.
I don't know. No, that's interesting. I have to comment on that.
But that's what people say.
They say it's natural, right? Because I don't know, because I want to do weird stuff with my wife. My wife looks at me weird sometimes. Yep. I want to do some weird.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I guess that freaked her out a little bit. Yep. It stopped watching it. It stopped watching because I know she was stuck. And I guess my son or somebody one day came by, used my phone and saw porn on the phone.
Yep.
I just had to stop. We got really out of hand.
Dude, first of all, listen, there'll never be enough porn to satisfy you. There'll never be enough.
It's not healthy. Yeah.
It's not. But, hey, man, look. There's never enough.
Yeah.
I remember, like, man, you could spend 3 hours looking for the perfect image. It's real dark. You really see somebody crazy. Smacking somebody and choking somebody.
Oh,
and
yeah, I thought
and
that
then you feel like, whoa, did I watch that? Was I a part of that?
There's so
because
much.
you
out there.
And listen,
I'm
it
always
gets
scared
darker
somebody,
and
I'm
darker
scared when
and darker.
I'm watching. I'm scared somebody's gonna check in on me and say Mike is watching crazy. The whole
Hey,
world's gonna see me watching.
I have a daughter, and my fear is that, you know, she's in school and some kid who has a phone shows her some video or something.
Yep.
I've heard stories from parents about their kid is on a school bus, some innocent, you know, 12-year-old girl, and some boy takes his cell phone and shows her some porn video.
I said this, and it's funny, I said this at a women's conference, which blew everybody's mind. But I remember in the NFL going to, you know, one of the things, you know, you stop in, you go to Atlanta, and they go to Magic City, they go to the strip club, and I went with the guys.
Right.
Magic City is just, man.
You know, yeah, it's a den of iniquity.
When I used to go out.
You smell it first.
Oh, man.
I feel real.
Listen, when I'm in Magic City, you know what I think of Magic? I'm thinking of those guys had on the slave ships coming back.
You smell it first.
Those bodies
It's dark.
falling over everywhere.
Wait. Oh, it is. Wait, man, you know something wrong. Like, you know, you just go in there like, oh, man, I descended into hell. I descended into hell. First of all.
That's just how I was living back then.
I hear you. Listen, hey, man, I was there. I seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to hear because I played in the NFL.
Yes.
I played 6 years.
Okay.
The culture is so much what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
And to hear you talk about it, it's like every guy coming out of football is trapped in this psychological prism of how you're supposed to be.
Because you think, I'm at the strip club, it's natural, but what's happened, this is what I said at the women's conference, what happens is you see the girl and she's doing her thing, but then she starts talking. And you're like, why are you talking? Shh. Like, you're ruining it. And don't talk about your bills or your kids or your, hey, shut up. You know why? Because she's becoming a human. The realization is that you are in love with an image. You are in love with something that's not real. But once they start talking, and it's like, why is this irritating? See, the problem is, and this is the thing, men got mad at me. Men got mad at me because I pulled it out there. But the thing is, I said, when men are like that, even with porn or with strip club or anything like that, women are all the way human. This is what I mean. They're only like 3/5 human.
Yeah.
Because you know, as long as you just stay smiling, because it's the fakest smile you've ever seen. Yeah. But you don't care. Just fake smile, fake it, and do what you do. But the thing is that when somebody's not human, you can do anything you want to.
It's a fantasy.
Yeah,
you can do
the same
anything.
way with slavery. You know, they dehumanized them.
3/5 human.
You know, they're not human. This is not pain. This doesn't hurt them. And that's how we look
they
at
can be
women
chained
like
up in the cold, no problem.
And yeah, some women people do look at women like that.
So OnlyFans, a lot of times individuals that are on there are doing it willingly. They see a way to make money, but in reality, there's also a lot of exploitation going on there. We heard about one case where a young girl was on one of the sugar daddy sites. She was going out having dinner with older men and thinking nothing bad was going to happen. But she had dinner one night with an individual, and he ended up slipping her something in her drink, knocked her out, got her back to the hotel, and ended up keeping her a few days, and was exploiting her through webcams and paying for the links so people can watch and posting it on OnlyFans. So it happens that way, and we're starting to see a lot more online exploitation than like street or anything else like that. Online gaming is another huge issue. You got a lot of predators that are targeting young kids, trying to exploit them. So it's happening. Online is the way, is the where it's moving, the trend that is moving that way.
Thistle Farms was founded in 1997. The Justice Enterprise was created in 2001. This building was donated in 2013. And Becca had a vision that she had to fight for, that we needed a cafe, because part of the concept of her work, this notion that love is the most powerful force for change in the world, that the way that we live out that mission is through radical hospitality. And she believed that a frontline cafe where people could come in and get a cup of tea and just have a place just to sit and be, and also to know that this is a survivor-friendly, recovery-friendly place. She pushed for the cafe and had some resistance to opening the cafe, but we opened our cafe. The room that's right behind me here used to be our manufacturing space, and that is now our National Education Center. And we also host our weekly meditation circles, which have changed because of COVID. We host them in this space here. And down the hill, because we actually have a whole campus here, we have our manufacturing facility where we make custom soaps and bath salts and lotions. And then underneath us right now, if you smell really, really hard, you can smell the aroma of candles, because we produce over 50,000 candles a year in our basement here. So we have about 90 people on staff, and close to half of them are survivors and graduates of the program, and the other half that are not technically survivors, well, we're all survivors of something. So we are all aligned in this mission.
Modern day slavery has been here for, since the beginning of time, and it still happens. It just looks different than what people, I think that it looks different than what people expect it to look like. And so I like meeting these people at these different organizations. We've got some great partners in this. We're a part of the Thistle Farms network, and they're just awesome people that have the same heart, the same passion for helping people, for helping these women, these girls, to know that there's another way. There is a better life out there. And if they just give a little bit, we can meet them where they are and help them to start that new journey, that new chapter of life.
Hey. Hi, how you doing? Hold on, the wind's not blowing. The wind is not blowing. She said the wind's not blowing. Hold up. Yes. Is it working? We might have to go somewhere. Hey, how you doing?
I'm Corey.
Nice to meet you. I'm Shorty.
Nice to meet you.
Is that Jeff? Well, hi. What's up? That's Jeff. How you doing? I'm Shorty. Nice to meet you. You do look like Jeff.
It's the beard, isn't it?
Is you?
Anytime I get to see her, it's really exciting for me. And we get to just catch up, and I get to see how she's doing. She gets to see how I'm doing, and just to get to spend time with her and for her to know, like, we're still here for you. I might live pretty far from you, but anytime I'm up there, I'm going to make sure that I make seeing her a priority.
One of the biggest misnomers is that we're rescuing them, and we're not. We don't rescue anybody in this work. What we do is walk alongside of survivors and help them to be the authors of their own healing journey. And I think that's so important, because as long as we look at as survivors as victims to be rescued, or, that terrible phrase, a voice for the voiceless, they're not without voices. They have loud, beautiful voices. Are we willing to listen? Are we willing to hear that voice and really recognize the agency that all of these women have? And it's a powerful and important thing. So a survivor can look any number of ways, and your job is not to rescue them. Your job is to walk beside them. We find that 70% of survivors need long-term supportive housing. It is a critical, important need that they have. And the other thing that we provide is we are not a halfway house. We are not a short-term facility. We do provide some emergency housing in what's called our safe house, but we really believe in providing sanctuary. And for many of our women, this is the first safe home that they've had in their lives. So we talk about giving women a second shot, but we're really giving them their first shot.
We were kind of preparing the house because we knew that a new girl was gonna come in. And so we always like got their rooms really nice, and then the other girls would like write letters like, welcome, we're so excited you're here. Maybe like a little snack basket or something like that. But I remember she like walked through the doors and we were just kind of sitting there like ready to greet her. And her eyes just like lit up because she was like, I get to live here. Like, this is my home now. And like, she walked around and saw the living room and saw the pool table and then the kitchen. And like when she saw her bedroom and saw that she had her own space, she was like, this is mine. Like, this is my room. Yeah, this is your room. And so that was when I first met her, was like watching her eyes light up, seeing the home.
I'm trying to find a way to get the money to fix. Oh yeah, look at this, to fix. It's over with, Rachel. I broke my phone.
Oh, is this the one we bought you?
Yes, I've had it ever since you bought it. I told you I'd keep it.
But your numbers changed like 15 million times.
Yeah.
And me and her just really clicked. Like, we really bonded pretty much instantly. She was super protective of me. I mean, we got in our fights and stuff and our arguments and stuff, but for the most part, anytime anything ever happened, she was always, you know, very protective of me. And after I moved on from that program, from working there, and she would call me all the time. And then I ended up moving to Nashville, and I spent countless hours with her. We would go get coffee or go grab food or just talk all the time. And so we just kind of established a pretty close relationship where she knows that anytime she needs something, she can call me, or anytime she just needs to talk to somebody, she can call. So we've really just built this almost like a friendship, like a sisterhood with each other since I kind of walked with her through the beginning of her healing.
Well, it was nice to meet y'all. I gotta head back down here. I love you, Mama.
Love you.
You too.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys too. See you later.
See ya.
When you're working with somebody who has a trauma bond, who is literally bonded to another person through manipulation and coercion and fraud, it's hard to walk away from that. And so when they leave, it's like you're taking everything that's familiar to them. And even though it hurts and it sucks, it's still that's their familiar. And that's what they're comfortable with. So when you give them real love, it hurts. It's like pouring alcohol on an open wound. Like, they're not used to that real love. So it's almost like rejection to them, if that makes sense. Because you're like showing them structure, you're showing them boundaries and healthy decisions and healthy life skills. And to them, that's confining when all they're used to is doing whatever. You know what I mean? Like, they're out there in the world. They're being told what to do, but it looks different.
Working in this field is really hard. And, you know, there was a point where I almost burned out because I was just like I don't know if I can do enough. Like, this is such a problem, and I don't know if what I can give is enough and what I can give it even make a difference or make a dent in this problem. And what I found is in the process, it's hard to see the impact of what you're doing. And sometimes it just looks like showing up and doing what you can, and just believing like that what you are sowing and what you're pouring into these women is of eternal value and is beyond what we can even see. And I feel like that is what really brought me back into wanting to do this from that place of burnout. Is like I've seen it and I've experienced it, and I can't turn away and see that this isn't happening and just move on with my life. Like, my heart is forever changed because I've seen the person. It's not just a problem. It's not just about a group of like a population, but it's the individuals, and it's for the one. And you know, there's moments that are really hard. There's moments where their trauma comes out at me, and it comes out at the people that are trying so hard to love them and show up for them. And I just have to keep reminding myself, it's not about me. It's not anything that I can control or change, but I can choose to love, I can choose to show up, and I can, I can love unconditionally, and I can be I can use what I've experienced in my life and the healing I've walked through and be someone that can be a part of someone else's healing, and use my testimony and use what I've experienced in my life and believe that God is also going to do it in their life. I don't have to make it happen myself, and I'm not the source. Like, I'm not the one who's going to bring the healing, but by showing up, that I can be a part of it, and that's amazing, and that's beautiful.
At my house, we have these bird feeders, and they stay empty most of the time because I'm unfortunately really lazy and I don't want to tromp up that hill to put the feed in the bird feeders. But when I do, what amazes me is that a couple birds will show up, and then more. And then within a half an hour, we are looking at flocks of birds. It's just amazing to me. And I liken this process to that. I think that the need is so great that when people hear, hey, there's long-term, free, safe housing for women survivors, and it doesn't matter if you have a criminal background, you're going to be welcomed here. And we're not going to ask you, what did you do? Or what happened to you? We're gonna ask, where are you? What's your story? That word gets out really fast because the need is so great. So this was donated in 2013, and the room that you all were standing in, oh, that's okay.
She just got out of treatment at Moultrie.
Oh, wow.
It's right by us.
Yeah, it's down the class.
You said 2013 or 14?
2013, and we have this piece of land here that we'd love to turn into something, but we're not sure if we're going to get zoning to be able to do that. And this is our manufacturing facility, but it's not our building. We rent it.
So with something like this, what ideas do you have?
Well, my idea, I'd love to have a new manufacturing facility with underground parking and affordable housing on top. That's just my big stretch dream, but this is our 1966 Divco milk truck that is getting painted with our logo. Just like pop up, like a pop-up shop, and just park it, and it's just fun. We just are like, it was donated, and we love it. It's so sweet.
That is amazing. I mean, that right there is an eye catcher for sure.
Yeah, and it's going to say, you know, the Thistle Farms Love Heals. Hey, Melissa. Yeah, so this is our, I know, and it smells really nice. Okay, like things did not start out like this though, y'all. It really didn't. Like they were literally pouring candles by hand in Rubbermaid pitchers. Oh, yeah. So it changes a lot.
Yeah.
It's a happy place.
I first heard about Thistle Farms when I was interning up in Nashville for a safe home. And somebody came to me like, have you heard of Thistle Farms? And I was like, no, I don't know who that is. And they're like, well, you should check them out. They're really cool. I was like, okay, cool. So I put that kind of on the back burner. I was too busy. And a year later, when I ended up moving to Nashville, one of the people that I worked with brought up Thistle Farms again and said, hey, Thistle Farms is having this training. And I was working with Hope for Justice at the time. I was their volunteer victim advocate. And they offered to pay for me to go sit in this training. So I was like, sure, why not? And so Jeff Walker and I went to the training, and I was just so inspired. I sat there and I just soaked up all of the knowledge that they were giving. I was just like a sponge. I couldn't believe how incredible their model was, and that they were actually having people who, you know, were survivors on staff leading the way. People who have overcome the hardest things in the world are leading the way for other women to experience the same thing. And I was so inspired by that. And I just continued to go back there when I lived there. I would go all the time. I would go shop, I would go grab food, I would bring my friends. Anytime someone came from out of town, we'd go to Thistle Farms and have a cup of coffee or, you know, buy a shirt. I went to a couple more of their trainings as well. And that's truly what, like, it's funny that that happened, because years before that, in my prayer time, I just felt like maybe one day I'm gonna start like a shop for people to work at, who otherwise wouldn't have had an opportunity to work, but that would be in a program. So like I just had these ideas in my head, but like seeing somebody else actually doing it and have been doing it and been doing it good for like 20 years, I was just blown away. And so I looked at them and I said, that's what Albany needs. That's what Heritage of Hope is going to look like. We're going to be modeled after them because they're killing it. And so many of the women are just thriving. They're getting their bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, you know, they're helping other people. They're buying their first house, their first home. And seeing that, I'm like, I want that for the women here. Like, let's give them an opportunity to do that here. So once we started, we instantly asked to be a sister organization of Thistle Farms so that we could model after them and just continue to learn and grow from what they have to offer.
So I think there need to be probably hundreds of more organizations out there that are trying to fight against trafficking. And Heritage of Hope, being in southern Georgia, probably has a lot of influence down there. They're able to come alongside a lot of potential victims that maybe somebody else wouldn't reach. I see them as someone, as an organization that would be able to help as many survivors in that area as possible. We see a lot of prostitution everywhere. We hear about a lot of trafficking everywhere. But we really need people to actually get their hands dirty, get down in the fight, and just try to come alongside them and help them any way that they can.
So when I first moved to Nashville, I knew I wanted to volunteer with anti-trafficking work, but I wasn't really sure where that would fit. I was kind of in a place of just waiting to see what was gonna happen. And that was when Jeff approached me and said, hey, like, you should come volunteer with us. We go out and we do surveillance and we meet with the women on the streets, and I think you'd be really good at talking with them. And I was like, sure, why not? I'll give it a try. But man, I did not realize how much Hope for Justice was truly gonna stretch and grow me, you know, because I'm telling you, they are so hands-on. Like, Hope for Justice is so hands-on in the community, right in the trenches. They are not afraid to get their hands dirty. And I was so inspired by that, and I wanted to be a part of that. And they gave me this opportunity to really step into it. And it was scary, and it was hard work, and I often felt very underqualified, but it was just a really cool place to just learn and grow. And just hearing from Richard and Jeff and Ben there as well, and kind of like shadowing them and watching them as they did the work. And I was there, you know, to work with the women that we came into contact with and comfort them throughout their process as well. That was just really cool to me, because they offered a space where I could heal as well as grow, and partner with that community in a way that I had never seen it done before.
I met Rachel when we were working with a anti-trafficking nonprofit in Nashville. She had come on board with them. I had already been working with them, and we just met, started working together, and probably worked there maybe close to a year, if I remember right. After she left the nonprofit, then she started volunteering as a victim advocate with Hope for Justice. And her role was she would go out with our surveillance team and with the investigators and would ride along with them. And if there was any potential victim that's out there, whether it was a prostitute or runaway or anybody like that, then she would be the one there to come alongside them, talk to them, find out what their story is, what their situation is, and offer them help. We had little cards that we would hand out. So she would be the one engaging people, and then the investigators would be the ones just kind of doing overwatch, doing security for her while she's doing that. I think that there was, for somebody as young as she was, she had a drive and a passion for doing that type of work. She definitely has a heart for people. She has a desire to come alongside survivors that have suffered abuse, suffered trauma, suffered exploitation, and she just wants to help them and love on them. So it's something, I don't know if I can describe it, but it's something that she is a natural at. Being the victim advocate, it allowed her an opportunity to work alongside investigators to see how we build cases from start to finish. So she saw that where we would get the tip, or we would see someone, a runaway on Facebook, for example, that she would see starting there, and how we would start collecting information and start interviewing and looking at all the possible connections, and then move from there to actually going out looking, trying to find out as much information as we can about the individual that we're looking for or trying to help. And then the final process of, once we recover that individual or we get them the help that they need, she saw the end of that as well. So I think that really prepared her for being the one that is setting up Heritage of Hope and trying to help individuals in her area, her network, where they are. Start to finish, is probably the best training that she could have got, good exposure, and helping her to develop what she wants to do where she's at.
So this is our Second Hands of Hope event. And basically what we're doing is, since we are a grassroots nonprofit, we have to raise money the old-fashioned way right now. And so what we're doing is, we've had a ton of people donate clothes and all sorts of things, and we've made them really affordable for people to buy, but also support what we're doing. So all of the money is going to go towards our mission in rescue and restoration, as well as prevention of human trafficking in Albany. So these clothes will fund a rescue. Feeling good. Just getting everything set up. So we only have an hour. Pressure's on.
Why doing circles?
I know. Oh, that'll be better. So last weekend we had a fundraiser, the Second Hands of Hope. It was our first thrift shop. The weather that day was absolutely awful. I mean, literally we had like 3 tornado warnings. The power went out. It was crazy.
On the back side of the river square, there's like good trailer parks out there.
Despite that, people actually still came and bought clothes, and we raised over $1,000. So I feel like, that was a success. It was a good time. We had our volunteers there that really just made it happen. They did a crazy amount of work to set this thing up and get it ready. And so, I mean, just their dedication to that aspect of it was really, really cool to see them get excited about helping us raise funds for what we do. $1,000 actually goes a pretty long way. We can use that for a rescue. We'll probably split it between rescue and then like overhead, but that will help us pay for transportation for a survivor, as well as their food, their clothes, different things like that, and cover their rental car fee if we have to stay in a hotel room, something like that. So a lot of people are starting to pour in now that a live band is coming, so it's going really great. We're having a good time, having good conversations, and just enjoying each other's company. So I'm starting from the very beginning. So we've been working with law enforcement pretty closely on just about every case that we've worked lately, and they had dealt with this young lady many times, and they were just kind of at a crossroads with her. Her pimp was in jail, and there were still things going on in her life that were just not good, and she was in a very, very vulnerable place. But the law enforcement saw her. She really saw her and was like, I believe that this young lady can have another chance because I was just like her when I was younger. She had also had a baby at a very young age. And so when she looked at her, she saw herself. But she made something of herself. And so she's like, if we can get this young lady on the right path, there's, her opportunities could be endless. So she brought her to us, and we sat down with her and we talked with her. And just her story was absolutely heartbreaking. Like, you don't hear that kind of stuff happening every day in your town. It's almost foreign. Like, we don't want to hear it. We started asking her questions, and she was telling us that she had a baby at 13 years old and that she almost died from medical complications during the birth because her body just wasn't made to handle that yet. She was so young. She's still a child. And that was a lot of her trauma was from that, and the father being a much older man than herself. And so I don't want to say the wrong age, but I believe she told me in his 40s. I don't know if that's the same person as the father, but there are multiple older men that were taking advantage of her from a very young age. And I believe the abuse actually has started before she even had her baby. So dealing with that life and living in the circumstances that she was living in, I feel like she just kind of believed that lie. I mean, to have that put in your life from such a young age that you're an object, that's all you believe. And so she met her pimp. I'm not really sure how that happened, but I know that there was promise of, nice things like nice clothes, nice underwear, just things that, are appealing to young women, especially, in that lifestyle, he made her promises to get her things, and he did so by stealing those things and like recruited her to do that with her. So not only was there sexual exploitation, but there was having her do illegal things for him, for her to take the fall almost. And so that was really hard on her as well. So when he went to jail, she was brought to us, and she was still continuing to do those things. And the question was from other people that we were working with was like, why? Her pimp's in jail, so why is this still going on? And I kept trying to explain, this young lady has been hooked on every kind of drug since probably 13 or 14 years old. She is genuinely addicted to these drugs. It's not just like, oh, that sounds fun. This is a need to her. And so in that, she's going to do whatever she has to do to get it, even if that means compromising herself over and over again, which then pulls her into these bad situations. So we got a text one night from her mother saying she ran away again. And this was such a common thing that her mom almost seemed numb to it. It's not that she didn't care, she cares. It was just, she was just so drained. Like, this happens all the time. Like, my daughter runs away bi-weekly.
And we focus a lot on runaways. We scour social media and looking for posts, looking for missing children, missing adults, to try to be able to get to them before they become exploited. The one girl that I was talking about that we recovered she ran on a Monday. We had her by Friday of the same week. It never happens that quick. A lot of times there are months, some even years, that once they run, they get connected to the wrong people. And most of the time, they've already been talking to somebody online. Again, not knowing who they are behind the screen, they're just going by what they're being told. And they help convince them to run as well. And they end up getting, meeting, whatever. So runaways are very vulnerable for exploitation.
So it was actually the night before she texted me and was like, I want to come home, can you come get me? It was like 11 o'clock at night. And I knew that just wasn't possible in that moment, considering our team had come and gotten her a couple times, and the distance and everything. But I had asked her if she wanted a bus ticket, and she said, I will, if I can find a way to get there. And so just after communicating with her, I could just tell that probably wasn't going to happen. So I just started asking her questions. Where are you? Who's in the room? What's the room number? Do you know the person's name? What kind of car do they drive? And she just gave me all of that information.
That's very rare. Because once they get in the hands of a trafficker, they are controlled. Everything's controlled for them. Their phone's taken away, their freedom of movement's taken away, all of that. So the fact that she was able to communicate with her and get the information on where she's at currently, that it doesn't happen like that.
And so we just kept trying to make it happen, because we were like, you don't have long. If these people find out, the people that she's with find out that people are looking to bring her home, they could move her and cut off communication completely. And then what? So you gotta move while you have the chance. So she even asked me, she was like, why are you asking me all this? And I was like, don't worry about it. I just want to know. I just want to make sure I have eyes on you at all times. I want to know where you are. So we made contact with dispatch. Just. Thank you so much. Woo! We got her to safe house. That's awesome. Yay! Yes, on the way. When Win.
So what exactly happened?
So we contacted the police in North Georgia, and they were able to make contact with her, and we coordinated between the safe home and law enforcement in order to see if we could get her into a safe home. But it had to be on her own free will. We couldn't do it for her. And she said she needed the help, and she said she wanted to go. So the police are coordinating her transportation right now. So that's a win. You can take somebody, you know, from a very broken situation, and they can begin to see themselves in a new light. Like, they're the hero of their own story. Like, this is their story. We just get to be a part of it. We just get to be a small piece in the bigger picture. And so they get to take ownership of their own story. But the important part of that is that takes place after the rescue. That takes place when they're in these programs, learning how to cope, how to heal, how to start over, the job skills, you know, and having employment opportunities where they can experience economic freedom, so that when they're done with the program, they know how they can make a trade. You know, they can make jewelry and sell it, or candles and sell it, or coffee or honey or tea, like so many different things that they can learn how to do to generate income for themselves, to be able to sustain and support their families, and get their children back, and just know that there's so many other options for them instead of starting back over in that life again. Like, they can truly be set apart. They don't have to go back to that. They have many tools in their tool belt, many, you know, opportunities ahead of them. And so we don't do that for them, but we partner with them to help them on that journey. We like hold their hand along the way as they begin to take those steps for themselves. And soon enough, you don't have to hold their hand anymore, and they want it for themselves, and they're growing and thriving and healing, and they're looking great. You know, they're gaining the weight back that they lost, you know, throughout their abuse, and you're just seeing them blossom in confidence. And that's what so many nonprofit organizations are doing an incredible job at, is they're not just taking them off the street, but giving them opportunities to truly start over.
I would say in almost every case that I've experienced, that is the first step. It is the place where there can finally be stability. And I think that without safe homes and without these places, they're not actually going to be able to find a new life and walk in a new life, because they need that season of stability where they're able to get medical care, where they're able to just kind of everything settle down a little bit for them. And I think, you know, there's different, everyone's story is different, so how long they're there, how long that place is needed for them, it could be a few months, it could be a few years, but I think that in every case I've experienced, that is the necessary first step.
The thing I hope that Heritage of Hope can change here, especially in the city of Albany, is the mindset, the perspective of other human beings and what we see when we look at them and how we respond to them. Instead of, you know, turning our heads and rolling our eyes at somebody that we see standing on the street corner. Offering a helping hand, offering maybe something that they need, like a blessing bag. Let's just change our mindset from looking at people one way when we don't really know what their story is. And in that becomes awareness, and then awareness leads to action, and action leads to change. That's what we want.
All of these thresholds can hold me down. Push through the crossroads and I hit the ground, yeah. No different picture to the bigger frame. To find my place, I don't need a change. Don't need a change. And I chase this river to the ends of the earth, but it won't rattle my bones, it won't rattle my bones. Well, my soul is free on this wide open road. Now I'm bringing it home, now I'm was born.